Welcome to the first episode of MissTrial after the presidential election. And we still don't know who controls the House, even though it's looking like the Republicans will control the House, as they clearly control the Senate and also the Supreme Court. So all three branches of government are MAGA, and this is going to be our first time meeting, the three of us together, since this incredible news has landed in the U.S. And a lot has happened in this week. A lot of appointments, a lot of people that are going to have a role in government that I think are somewhat surprising to a lot of people. Elon Musk is calling himself the first buddy, and he's apparently in almost every important meeting that Trump is having with whether it's Zelensky from the Ukraine or Erdogan from Turkey. I mean, he's there with his 4-year-old and his nanny, and Trump is handing the phone over. Hey, talk to my first buddy over here. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on at the White House, and he's appointing people to positions that are just. He's going full MAGA, full MAGA, putting loyalty first, loyalty to him first, and to the country second. And they're not even hiding it. They're saying the quiet things out loud. You know, they're appointing the Fox News host, Mr. Hegsreth, who's got a Christian white nationalist tattoo on his arm. In fact, it's being reported that he's going to be the Department of Defense head of Department of Defense. It's being reported that on January 6th, when they were trying to do the peaceful transition of power, he was actually before all this stuff happened, his services were told not necessary because of his Christian nationalist tattoo, his viewpoints. Well, now he's going to be in charge of everybody, and there's all kinds of things that they are talking about, that they are planning. I was pleasantly surprised to see today that that the Senate is basically saying, okay, yeah, we're Republican, but not so fast, buddy. You are not only going to be a dictator on day one and taking our role away from us. And by appointing Senator Thune, who was not Trump's choice, and who is openly critical of Donald Trump at times, the Senate appointed him to be the majority leader, which is sending a big message, I think, to Donald Trump and his MAGA people that checks and balances mean something, and the Senate is not going to give up its role so fast. How you guys doing? We got to talk about all things involving Trump and his talk about recess appointments. I want to talk to you guys all about Jack Smith and what's going to happen there. But I think we can talk about Jack Smith, the special counsel, and his cases that are pending or either on appeal or in Washington, as well as the only conviction at the Manhattan DA's office. And now that's been put over. What's going to happen there? So many things we could talk about, but I think those are the things that are top of my mind. What about you guys? How you doing?
I'm hanging in. It has been a week. I think I'm one of those people who compartmentalizes pain and trauma, and so it's kind of like I'm unpacking it all. I actually was doing moderately okay until I had dinner and drinks with some friends, including some current prosecutors, federal prosecutors, and some former ones. So that really brought home to me. I know we're going to talk about what to expect in the Department of Justice. We've talked about it, but now it's that dream or that nightmare is becoming a reality. And I do think it's going to be really, really bad. And it's going to go really deep. So how are you, Kathleen?
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play, as they say? Well, I'm happy to see you guys. I mean, look, I'm not going to say I told you so, because I did not say that I thought that this was going to be a runaway election on either side. But once again, I think I am justified in my criticism of pollsters. Every single one of them got it wrong. We can have a whole day-long conversation about why that happens consistently and why they still get paid by people to do these pollings and these focus groups. I hope that Democrats are going to take these results, really dig deep district by district, because there was, if you look at the difference in how, the votes that Joe Biden got versus Kamala Harris, and where we picked up seats in the House or regained them and where we lost them. I mean, there's a whole case study that has to be done. But for me, we need to get rid of all the old Democratic leaders. And by get rid of, I mean, like, they just need to be put out to go retire. And let's really pass the baton to the next generation of leaders within the Democratic Party. I mean, how the Republican Party has become the party of the working class and we have become the party of the elites is just turning reality on its head. But that's something that we have to discuss, not necessarily today, but I just wanted to throw that out there. And also say that, look, I'm really happy to see that John Thune was elected by his colleagues to lead the Senate. Mitch McConnell had been their leader as a majority leader and a minority leader for 17 years. I mean, that's an inordinate amount of time for someone to be in power. And I think that John Thune is as good a choice as any. Although, he and John Cornyn, with whom, it was really those two the race was between, even though Rick Scott made a last minute effort and all of the, Elon Musk and all of these people were, RFK were endorsing his candidacy as if they have anything to say about who Republican senators pick as their leader. But all three of them have basically pledged somewhat to varying degrees, their loyalty to Trump vis-a-vis allowing recess appointments. And we can talk about that later, but I'm glad to see that John Thune is in charge.
Yeah, I think we should jump right into the recess appointments. And that's something that I think, at least, you're a former member of Congress, so I'm sure you know what that is. Until Trump said, I want the next Senate Majority Leader to go along with recess appointments and just put them through, I had to do some research because I'm like, what is recess appointments? What does he mean? What's going on? And there's so much to unpack there, because really the Constitution provides for the Senate, right? Like the president appoints somebody with the advice and consent of the Senate. That is in the Constitution. And so that's why you see Senate confirmation hearings, right? And we've all watched them. We've all seen them. People still get through, even if they're hard or difficult confirmation hearings. But what are these recess appointments, and what is Trump and MAGA terrified of that they don't want to have these confirmation hearings? I mean, can you shed some light on all of this for us, Kathleen?
So there wasn't really talk of, I don't think he made any recess appointments in his first term. He put a lot of people in acting positions, which is something you can do when there is a vacancy at an agency, as in the top agency position. And that person can serve for anywhere between 210 days to 300 days, depending on what happens. Specifically, at some point, their nomination has to go before the Senate, and then they have to get thumbs up or thumbs down. And then depending on that, there is a limited time period that you can serve in an acting position. The thing about recess appointments is basically so there are a mechanism that allows the president to fill vacancies without the Senate's confirmation when the Senate is not in session. Now, this is one of the primary roles. It's the recess appointments clause in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. So the president is allowed to do this, but basically the Senate has to agree. It is the Senate Majority Leader that gavels the Senate into session and out of session. And it is basically by saying, yes, we will allow you to do these recess appointments. Basically what the Senate is saying is take that major role of ours, to offer advice and consent as to your nominees, to your cabinet and other positions. Just take that away and you basically can just run the Senate as well. So now you're not only in charge of the executive branch, you haven't only put all of your, anti-choice judges on the Supreme Court, but now you own the Senate lock, stock, and barrel. And most likely the House too, because when Trump went to see Biden, he stopped on the Hill and he sat with House Republicans and basically endorsed Mike Johnson and said, he's my guy. Now, I want to just let people know that, in recent years, the use of recess appointments has become less common and definitely more contentious. There was a Supreme Court ruling actually in 2014. The case was NLRB versus Noel Canning. And in that case, the court ruled that the president could not make recess appointments during pro forma sessions of the Senate, where the Senate is technically in session but is not conducting business. So this ruling effectively limited the president's ability to bypass the Senate's advice and consent role through recess appointments. So now in the current political context, President-elect Trump, he's expressed a desire to utilize recess appointments to expedite the filling of key positions in his administration. I think we can take this to be pretty much proof positive that he intends on nominating much more fringe people than he did in his first administration. He's urged, as we talked about, the Senate Republican leadership to support this approach so that they don't delay any confirmation process. But we'll see now that John Thune is going to be the majority leader of the Senate, what happens. While, they can facilitate the swift installation of officials, they are actually temporary and typically expire at the end of the next Senate session. So unless the appointee is subsequently confirmed by the Senate. So recess appointment, person goes in, they can actually serve in that position for the entire term of the Senate, which is a 2-year period. So right up until the midterms. Think about the damage that can be done by someone in that position who has not been vetted by the Senate. So that's basically why recess appointments are even better than putting someone in an acting position. And we'll see, what happens. I mean, Susie Wiles is going to be the chief of staff. That is a position that does not require consent, advice and consent of the Senate, but everything else does. I mean, whether it's, Hegseth or Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, or, my former colleague Lee Zeldin as the head of the EPA, can imagine the damage that he would do in that position. I mean, we'll see what happens, how many he thinks he can get passed through the Senate process and how many he's going to push them to do through this recess appointment process. But, it doesn't bode well for the kind of people that he seems to be wanting to surround himself with. Stephen Miller is the deputy chief of staff in charge of policy. I mean, talk about frightening. Tom Homan, who's a deputy secretary or chief of staff in charge of, he's the border czar. I mean, he's the one that's talking about these mass deportations of these mixed status families. The mother or the father is not here, is undocumented. I mean, the family separation, you thought it was bad during the first Trump term. It is going to be just vile and unbelievable. So that's this is one of the major jobs that the Senate has. And if John Thune allows the president to kind of overtake this process, it doesn't bode well for there being any guardrail in reality, to keep this president in check, and ensure that he does not just run roughshod over the whole functioning of the government. But again, that's what he feels he has a mandate to do. He feels like he has a mandate to do that.
It's the mandate that is, driving, I think, some of these appointments that he's planning to make, right? Like it's such a kick in the pants or a kick in the teeth, whatever, like to make Kennedy the head of Health and Human Services, someone who doesn't believe in child vaccinations, or at least a lot
of fluoride in water. Right.
Or like who was being discussed for education, which they want to abolish. I mean, it's like the most extreme possible picks for the agencies that they want to dismantle or they want to cabin in some way. They have exactly the person, who's going to do that. I mean, some of them seem like they don't really know that much. I don't know what Kristi Noem knows about Homeland Security or Hogseth about defense, right? I mean, I think he was in the reserve, right? I don't know, but
not exactly sure. He was in the military, some roles.
The National Guard. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, it is frightening. I mean, it almost seems like with the way you described it, if he does a recess appointment and maybe then he could do an acting and maybe almost get to the end of the term, right? Without ever having to confirm anybody.
I want to just read to you, because the making recess appointments is in the Constitution as well. So it's Article 2, Section 2, Clause 3. It's right after. It's right after the one that you just talked about of the advice and consent clause. Section 2.
Well, no, I actually quoted the recess one, but yeah, you're right. That's right.
It said, oh, okay. I apologize, but it says, so it essentially says the president shall have the power to fill all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of the next session, as you said, Kathleen. And it basically says that it authorizes them to make temporary appointments when the Senate is not in session. And look, Alexander Hamilton talked about this in Federalist number 67. It was supposed to be nothing more than a supplement for the purposes of establishing appointments in general, because look, back then they had to get to Congress on horseback from far away. It wasn't, they didn't want to have Senate business, just because a vacancy may happen. They didn't want to have to wait and not have the government's business go on. And so, the question becomes, what is the definition of may, a vacancy that may come? And, there's, and as you said, there's case law that really clearly, that clearly talks about what you can and cannot do. But what's the definition of a recess of the Senate? What's a vacancy that may happen? What can the president do? And how does this all work in practice? Because let's say he does it anyway. Who's going to stop him when the courts, let's just say Thune says, no, we're not going to do it this way, and Trump does it anyway. Who's going to stop him? Because the courts essentially have said, you have immunity for anything that you do. So, and somebody's got to enforce it, right? Somebody's got to actually enforce whatever it is that he's doing. And the Supreme Court doesn't have any inherent enforcement powers. They're dependent on whether it's a U.S. Marshal to carry something out, or the military, or the Department of Justice, or they can proclaim things on paper, but what can they actually do about it? And when you've got the president in charge, someone like him, with all of the people who he's surrounding himself with, who don't seem to want to care about the rule of law, it makes you wonder, what are the guardrails and who is going to stop them? And so the selection of Thune said to me that the senators are saying to themselves, not so fast, not so fast. There are guardrails, and we're going to do, we're on your side, but you're not cutting us out. It's not a dictator. I don't know. Did you guys get that sense? Yeah.
I mean, they did it very quickly, and they really, and I think they did that by design, because this whole Rick Scott thing was kind of taking on a life of its own. And I think they wanted to nip that in the bud. And I think in the first round, he only got 13 votes. So he was eliminated just very quickly, just out of hand. So we'll see. And I think that, John Thune is like he's well liked, well respected. He's found a way to kind of bring together, more traditional, what they used to call establishment Republicans, and the MAGA wing of the party, pretty successfully. But let's see if he's going to be able to do that, in this kind of an instance where truly, like, one of the most basic functions of the Senate is hanging in the balance.
The Senate cannot let this happen, and why Senator Thune hopefully will not give up their very critical role of, frankly, holding hearings and really vetting candidates for office. Really, the most important reason that matters is so that unqualified or dangerous people don't get just kind of shoved into office without any kind of oversight, without the public knowing anything, without the Senate has to confirm them, right? They have to agree. And that's what checks and balances mean. And that is nowhere more significant and important than in this just stunning news that Trump is said that Matt Gaetz, the representative from Florida, is his choice for attorney general. I mean, it is shocking that that would be his pick. He is so not somebody who should be anywhere near the highest law enforcement role in the country. He's dangerous. He is loyal to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution. He has a pending investigation for potentially, allegedly having sex with someone who's underage and drugs and receiving gifts. I know that Kathleen had to file an ethics complaint against him when she was a member of Congress because he threatened a witness. I mean, this is somebody who he was there on January 6th. I mean, this is a dangerous individual who is going to literally weaponize the Department of Justice against political enemies. The Civil Rights Division is no longer going to do what the amazing work that they do. And he is going to be an arm of Donald Trump. Justice is no longer going to be blind. And I do not know whether the amazing career prosecutors who work in the Department of Justice, and they are really the best of the best, whether they're going to stay and work for someone like him. That is a stunning move on the part of Donald Trump. And I just hope to God that the Senate does their job, does not agree to these recess appointments, and frankly will hold hearings, because people like Matt Gaetz are not qualified. That has nothing to do with whether you agree with someone politically or not. He's dangerous. He's dangerous for this country, and it's dangerous to give him power to be a prosecutor, the prosecutor in chief, essentially, and to have that unchecked power. Wow, I just can't get over that this is the choice. So Matt Gaetz is, the news is calling it a provocative choice. People are calling it all different things. I will say it is a dangerous choice. No wonder he said ahead of time that he wanted these recess appointments, because he knew what was coming down the pike, and he knew that someone like Matt Gaetz is not likely to be confirmed. So let's hope our system of checks and balances holds up. So let's talk about Jack Smith next. What's going to happen to those cases, the Department of Justice? But first, let's take a very quick ad break of our amazing pro-democracy sponsors that we are so grateful are here with us and have chosen us and allow us to be on the air and stay on the air. Take a quick break. Have you heard about senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. So my life goals in my career and beyond require productivity, as you can imagine. But let's be honest, the aging process is not our friend. And when it comes to having the energy that I need to do all the things that I'm doing and productivity, I use Qualia Senolytics. So if someone would have told me that there was a science-backed ingredient that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, I wouldn't have believed it. But then I tried Qualia Senolytic. And now as we age, those zombie cells, they're called, or senescent cells that our body accumulates, they're sort of worthless, and they accumulate and cause aging, and they're sort of old, worn out cells, and they cause these symptoms of aging, like aches and discomfort, slow workout recoveries, sluggish mental and physical energy. And it's like this weird, middle-aged feeling, whatever you want to call it. So it's almost like pruning a tree, the dead leaves off a plant. Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out cells, those senescent cells, to allow for the rest of your cells to thrive in your body. And you just have to do it 2 days a month. The first time I read that, I thought, is that a typo? But it's really just 2 days a month. So this formula is non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring in the combined effect of all the ingredients together. There's a 100-day money-back guarantee. It's clinically tested 2-day rejuvenation regimen, and it might hold the key to unlocking your cellular health and revitalizing aging tissues throughout your body. And I really highly recommend that you give it a try. Since I started using Qualia Senolytic, I've had higher energy levels. I feel much younger, and I feel much more productive, enthusiastic, and my brain just feels more sharp, and I have less aches and pains. So resist aging at the cellular level like I do. Try Qualia Senolytic. Go to qualialife.com/mistrial for up to 50% off, and use code mistrial at checkout for an additional 15% off. For your convenience, Qualia Senolytic is also available at select GNC locations near you. That's QUALIA life.com/mistrial for an extra 15% off. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode. Did you know that just 4 companies control over 80% of the U.S. meat industry, and China now controls the largest portion of U.S. pork? Like 99% of the chicken, 95% of the pork, and 78% of cattle are raised in feedlot or confinement buildings. Over 80% of the antibiotics in the United States are fed to animals, and less than 2% of Americans are farmers, yet 100% of us eat. So 99% of farmers have an off-the-farm job just to pay for farming, because the average farm income is actually at a loss. So these companies literally use mobster-like tactics to crush American family farms. And with the additives they're putting into our food, Americans are stuck with, I would call it, kind of sketchy meat. So what can we all do about this? Let me tell you about this new exciting company that I absolutely love. They've come up swinging on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security. They're called Moink. The business is simple. Moink's meat comes from animals raised outdoors, where animals should be, frankly. Their farmers are given an honest day pay for an honest day's work, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices you can actually afford. Born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States of America is where your meat will come from. So keep American family farms farming by joining the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/mistrial. Sign up today, get free hot rolls in your first order. It's spelled Moinkbox, MOINK box.com/MISSTRIAL. Oink, oink, get moinked, moinkbox.com/mistrial. Give the gift of a greener home with Lomi. With the holidays around the corner, Lomi makes the perfect gift for anyone looking to go green. So it's also less trash, a cleaner kitchen, and a smaller carbon footprint, which is what I love, all at the push of a button. You turn scraps into dirt. It lets me turn my food scraps into dirt with the push of a button. I've even been known to bring food scraps home from restaurants just to put it in my Lomi, because I feel so strongly about what happens to food when it goes into the ground and creates methane gas that can actually hurt the environment. So less trash means less methane. And I love turning my waste into nutrient-rich dirt that my plants absolutely love, which I also love. So it's so satisfying knowing that I'm doing my part for the environment without any extra effort. I literally just push a button and I take that dirt and I put it back into my land and into my plants, and I can grow vegetables and things in it. It's just such a great way, just really my own little personal circle of life where I can save the environment, or at least doing my part to save the environment. So it's one of the best decisions I've made for my home is to have a Lomi there, and I absolutely love it. So if you're ready to start making a positive environmental impact and make clean up a breeze, which is also really great, and your trash smells much, much better because you don't have this rotting food in your trash. So it's exactly what you need. Head over to lomi.com/mistrial and use promo code mistrial. That's MISS mistrial to get $50 off of your Lomi. That's $50 off when you go to lomi.com/mistrial and use promo code mistrial at checkout. Say goodbye to food waste. Say hello to a cleaner, greener kitchen with Lomi. And like I said, with the holidays coming up, it makes the perfect gift for someone on your shopping list. So use the code mistrial. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode, Lomi. We're back. And again, thank you so much for our pro-democracy sponsors. We love them. We love the products. They choose us and we choose them. And so we're very, very grateful to them. Okay, let's now jump into the Department of Justice and Jack Smith. Danya, as a former federal prosecutor with the Southern District, why don't you tell us all things that are possible, likely, and where we are with both of the cases, because they're in two very different postures, right? You got the Jan 6 case that was about to go to trial. And then you've got the Mar-a-Lago case that has been dismissed by Judge Cannon and is currently on appeal. And on Friday, the government's brief on kind of the appeal is due in the 11th Circuit. And there are two, even if Trump can is immune, or even if, whatever, even though Trump's president and you can't prosecute a sitting president according to the OLC memo from 2022 and Department of Justice policy, et cetera, you got two other defendants, right, that are on that case too, Waltine Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira. So what happens to both of those cases? What happens to Jack Smith? And Danya, I've been dying to talk to you about this because you have the insight into this as a former high-level person in the Southern District of New York as a prosecutor.
Yeah, so let's start with the zoom out view and just talk about the Department of Justice more broadly. I mentioned in the beginning that I've been having a lot of, just informal conversations with people who have been in the Department of Justice and who are currently there. And I fear that there's going to be a massive exodus and a run for the door in the next couple of months. And there's 115,000 or so employees within the Department of Justice. There's U.S. attorneys' offices all over the country, 93 of them. And then there's Maine Justice. And there are real concerns about who, certainly out of the Southern District of New York, which is one of the districts with which Trump has taken most issue and has before tried to put in, or has put in, people who he thought were just going to do his bidding. They held firm and didn't, Jeffrey Berman in particular. But, there's a lot of fear about what's going to happen in the next administration. So first of all, who's going to be the Attorney General? J.D. Vance has said on the campaign trail, he said that that's going to be the second most important person in government after Trump. And Trump certainly has held a special place in his heart for the Department of Justice. He tried very, very hard to get DOJ lawyers to carry his water for him in the last go around with Jan 6 and around the election. And they also held fast and did not cave and refused to do things like send a letter to the Georgia legislature saying that there were non-existent investigations into election fraud and the like. And they all threatened to resign en masse when Trump threatened to install Jeffrey Clark, who was an obscure environmental lawyer, as his new acting attorney general. And they said, if you do that, we're all leaving, and you don't want that. And so he didn't. But it is going to be, as you said at the outset, a loyalist. It's going to be someone who he thinks will get rid of the cases that you just talked about, Karen, and also do exactly what he's been telling us all he's going to do, which is seek revenge against his political enemies. I think top of the list, just by Trump's own telling, is going to be Jack Smith. So he's going to be out before Trump takes office. And they have already said they're going to investigate the investigators. And so I don't know if it's congressional hearings, if it's Department of Justice, whatever it's going to be, they're going to take a very, very hard look at Jack Smith and the line prosecutors and staff that helped him, who I think really could be in jeopardy here as well. At a minimum, get kind of blacklisted, but at worst, actually face prosecution themselves, just as a result of an appointment that was made and an investigation that followed. So that is scary to me. It is scary to hear that the good people who do the work every day are fearful and want to leave. And they have reason to be fearful. We have heard one of Trump lawyers who's key on the transition team Mark Paoletta has actually explicitly said, I think he was just on X, and you've heard other people say that line prosecutors need to be worried too. That if they're going to be part of the quote unquote resistance, as Paoletta said, then they need to worry about their jobs, that they will face discipline, including and up to termination. And there has been talk about, we have talked on this podcast about Project 2025 and about, just clearing out all the underbrush, all the bureaucrats in the quote unquote deep state. We've talked about Schedule F, which is, folks who are lower level within government, that there's been a lot of talk about wanting to get them out and put, those who will take the test of fealty to Trump and pass it and install them. And so I think, line prosecutors, I've seen it. I've worked under Republican and Democratic institutions or administrations. I didn't see any change in terms of the way that cases were investigated or which cases were investigated. There are, tens and tens of thousands of prosecutors across the country who just put their noses down and or nose to the ground, put their heads down and get the job done, without fear or favor, as we say. And they, because there are going to be lots of things that might be distasteful. And, whether that's going after Jack Smith, or, getting rid of cases, and if they refuse to do it, I certainly would be fearful for their careers at best. And then there's whole divisions, right? There's a civil rights division that is going to be gutted. National security division, right? Which is a particular, redheaded stepchild to Trump, because they, also investigated the Mueller, part of the Mueller team, and then on the documents case. So you can imagine that there are some sections of the Department of Justice that I think are going to be really, really in jeopardy. There are others that he's probably going to want to beef up. The antitrust division, which has been pretty aggressive, especially going after tech. And, he hates a lot of these big tech companies and founders. Mark Zuckerberg probably has to watch out as well. And so I think it's really, the whole tone and tenor of the Department of Justice, I think, is going to be changed. And I think in a way that is truly frightening if he does the things he says he's going to do. And I don't know why we wouldn't believe him.
Danya, you bring up a really good point. As former prosecutors, and all three of us are, Kathleen, you were a former elected DA in New York. The interesting thing is you don't ever really know what anyone's political party is. I did all the hiring for the Manhattan DA's office. I interviewed everybody, and nowhere. Yes, the Manhattan DA is a Democrat, and he's a very progressive Democrat. But nowhere in the hiring process does somebody's political party come up. And you never really know. I could think back to all the prosecutors. There were a couple that you would know that because they would just, talk around the water cooler would talk politics a little bit, but a little bit. Politics had nothing to do with, you don't campaign, you don't do anything. You follow the facts wherever they lead without fear or favor. You prosecute people you agree with because they committed a crime, or you disagree with because they committed a crime. It has no bearing on a line prosecutor's work. And I'm hearing that hiring, they're going to start looking at, they're going to do away with this neutral hiring, apolitical hiring based on talent and someone who wants to uphold the law and the Constitution. And they're going to look for things like political party. And even if they don't explicitly ask the question, there are things that people can, if the word gets out that they're looking for loyalist Republicans, there are ways people can beef up their resume to make it very clear what their political views are so that you never have to ask the question, right? I was a member of the Federalist Society in law school, which is, the right-wing arm of law school. They could put that on there. Or I clerked for a particular judge, a MAGA judge, or I wrote this law review article on this issue that happens to be very much in the right wing. I mean, there are ways they can signal that to the Department of Justice, and I imagine that's what they'll do if they start to suggest that is one of the new requirements. That the phrase "justice is blind," right? Like that's for a reason. It's not supposed to be about politics. It's supposed to be about applying the law to the facts neutrally. And the idea that this is going to infect prosecution is just something that's what, if I were a line prosecutor, that's what would make me want to leave. Not because, because I would feel that that's just a different mission. That is not the mission of justice. And people go there to mete out justice, not to go after rivals and political enemies. But then at the same time, you think, well, if they leave, then who are they going to be left with? Like, hopefully they'll stay and not resist in a disloyal way, but resist in a stay don't just fight to fight because that's what the law requires, right? Like, I don't know. It just seems so shocking to me, this sea change in the Department of Justice.
Yeah. No. Sorry, Kathleen, what were you going
to
say?
I was just going to say, look, this race wasn't even really close. Like, he legitimately can claim that he has a mandate to blow everything up. And so I hear everything that you're saying, Danya and Karen, about DOJ, and I worry about that too. But where is the public outrage going to be when a lot of people how many people were Obama Trump voters, Biden Trump voters? I mean, look, I think I just can't let our time end before I say, I think it's kind of interesting that Trump, has run for president 3 times, and the only time he lost was to the older white man. So let's not even get into the whole misogyny of all of this. But he won young men overwhelmingly. He got more votes in cities and in suburbs. I mean, it was almost every demographic was higher for him. And that is what frightens me, because where is that external resistance going to come from if it doesn't come from the public?
Right. Well, a lot of exit polling and analysis now are, come from Trump voters who say, yeah, I know he said that stuff, but I don't believe it. And what's the expression? Something's about to hit the road,
where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that we're about to see if he did mean the things he said. If children start actually getting ripped out of their mother's arms, and there are mass deportations, not just of criminals, who have committed horrible acts here, which I think there's probably not a tremendous amount of disagreement, but dreamers. What happens when dreamers who have lived here their entire lives and are very, very much enmeshed, in their communities, and car comes for them at 6 a.m. and they get shipped out? What then? And same thing with the Department of Justice. He has said this, for whatever you say about him. And Karen said this earlier, the quiet part has been said out loud. So will then people say, oh, wow, I made a mistake? Will they be outraged? Or will they just say, yeah, this is what I signed up for. I'm okay with it because I'm also getting, I don't know what else they're going to get, tax cuts, but most of them won't.
So Danya, Jack Smith has said he's resigning. He's wrapping up the cases because he's just going to leave because it's inevitable. He's wrapping up the cases. The special counsel law, the law that creates the special counsel. There's in 28 CFR 600.8 sub C, there is a requirement that the special counsel write a report. It says at the conclusion of the special counsel's work, he or she shall provide the attorney general with a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions reached by the special counsel. what is he going to do with the cases, and what is he going to do with the report? Will it be public? What's going to be in there? What will he say? I want to hear what you have to say about that, but we're going to just take one more quick ad break. The holiday season's upon us, which can be very tough on your skin, including the colder weather, the indoor heating. It'll dry your skin, these nonstop festivities. It can lead to dehydration, and your complexion feels very dehydrated and dry. And so that's where today's sponsor, OneSkin, comes in. They have a scientifically proven product that is designed to support your skin at the cellular level, so it looks and feels healthier and holiday ready. So it's founded by an all-women team of scientists, and OneSkin focuses on skin longevity, not just surface level improvements. It's all thanks to their proprietary OS1 peptide, the first of its kind to switch off the cells that cause skin to become more vulnerable. Don't just take my word for it. OneSkin has over 6,300 five-star reviews for their moisturizers, cleanser, and sunscreen. And for a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using code MissTrial, MISSTRIAL, when you check out at oneskin.co. There's no com, it's not com, it's co, oneskin.co. So this holiday season, invest in your skin's long-term health, because healthy skin is a great gift. Personally, anyone who knows me knows how much I love OneSkin. I've been talking about it for many, many months. People have noticed how good my skin is looking. They tell me I look much younger than I actually am. I'm 58 years old, and I attribute it to my skincare routine, which very much is a OneSkin routine. I love it. I can't say enough good things about this product. That's oneskin.co/MissTrial with 2 S's. Anyone who knows me knows I love a great deal as much as the next person, but let's face it, who has time to do all the research just to save a few bucks? So it has to be easy, no hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. I didn't believe it at first, but it turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. That's incredible, right? Turns out that the longest part of the process here is trying to break up with your old provider. It's so easy to switch to Mint Mobile, and all you have to do is go to mintmobile.com/MissTrial. That's MISS trial. Then you'll see right now that all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. They all come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text. It's delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. So to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/MissTrial, MISSTRIAL. That's mintmobile.com/MissTrial. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/MissTrial. So $45 is required as an upfront payment. That's equivalent to $15 a month for 3 months. New customers on the first 3-month plan only, and the speeds are slower above 40 gigabytes on the unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply, but see Mint Mobile for details. We're back, and let's talk about the report, and let's talk about the cases and what will happen to them. Who wants to go? Tell us about these reports that Jack Smith is going to have to write, because we had don't forget, we had the Mueller report, we had the Hur report that talked about Joe Biden and his dementia. I mean, so these reports aren't anything new. We've had Bill Barr. Tell us about what's going to happen. Will Merrick Garland make this public? What's going to be in that report? What do you think? I mean, obviously we're just guessing, but what is just based on experience and your knowledge, what do you guys think will happen, and what will happen to the 2 cases?
Yeah. So I mean, the prosecutor, the special counsel, will provide that report, which is, part of their obligation to do before they leave, and the attorney general will decide what to do with it. We've talked about Bill Barr's summary of Mueller's report, his unfair and inaccurate summary of that report. And so, Garland is going to be able to do what he wants with it. I would imagine he's going to be informed by the political climate, perhaps also by the threat / promise of investigation / prosecution. So I think the more he gets over his skis and the more he provides information that has not yet been made public, which there is a substantial amount, then I think he, bears even more risk. So, and he tends to be a pretty risk averse guy. Maybe less so when it's his own, butt on the line. So that will be a really, really interesting question of how he chooses to handle this. But I don't think there's a ton of discretion on Smith's part in terms of what he does before he wraps up.
I would totally agree with everything you say, Danya, and I would just add this. They're on a very tight timeline. And to the extent that any final report by Jack Smith is going to include national security issues like secrets and information, that has to go to the appropriate agency to be vetted as to whether that can be included in the report, redacted from the report. I mean, that could, God knows how long that could take, especially on the, the documents case was thrown out in Florida. So I would just, and he, he wants to get this done, Merrick Garland. They want to get the report done. They want to get it vetted and they want to get it to Garland so he can make the decision. And their timeline is, January 20th when Trump gets sworn in.
So let's talk about the cases in particular. Right now, there is a pending indictment in the district court that is stayed because it's on appeal, right? On the January 6th case. What happens to the case? Does Jack Smith, what do we think? Does Jack Smith preemptively dismiss it? Does he wait until Trump dismisses it? Does he, what as a prosecutor, it's unprecedented. So, I've been thinking what do you do, right? Because Trump will obviously pardon himself or he'll order the Department of Justice to dismiss the case. And so what does Smith do? Does he force Trump to do that? Or does he do it himself? It's just such an open question for me. Kathleen, what do you think?
Look, to me, it seems like pretty obvious that he's probably just going to take care of the cases himself. But, you could argue that, force him to dismiss the cases against himself, to pardon himself or whatever he would have to do. I just don't know. A lot of that is going to be, Merrick Garland, obviously, I would say is probably going to be the one to make that decision, right, Danya, about what's actually going to happen with these cases. He's ultimately the decision maker.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Jack Smith himself withdraws the cases. I think he's going to make Trump do it. Why would he withdraw them? But once Trump, he's going to step down. Jack Smith is going to step down. So I don't know who's going to be left in place to keep going, right? Because there's going to be briefing and argument and all that. So there has to be someone or a skeleton crew, at least in place, to be able to keep those cases going until, on January 20th, they are relieved of their responsibilities. And then we'll see what Trump does. But we've seen it in Trump 1, right? Where the first administration, where he required the Department of Justice to withdraw its prosecution against Mike Flynn in a case where the guy had not just been convicted, but had pled guilty, and they made that case go away. So, I think he has said, but if not, it's 100% clear that he's going to get rid of those cases. His attorney.
The Mar-a-Lago case, though, poses a slightly different issue because that case, there's a district court ruling of Eileen Cannon saying that you've got Clarence Thomas, let's back up. You've got Clarence Thomas in his concurring opinion in Trump versus US saying that the use of special counsels is essentially invalid. And then you've got Eileen Cannon in Mar-a-Lago taking that concurrence and turning it into a decision in the Mar-a-Lago case. And I would absolutely hate for that to be I think there's a reason to at least get the 11th Circuit to reverse that. I would not want that to be the law in the Southern District of Florida. So, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think that they will continue with file their appeal and at least get the 11th Circuit to file their brief and at least get the 11th Circuit to rule on that and reverse her? I mean, and then maybe make him dismiss it. I just kind of feel like that seems like the more that, at least they have an interest in continuing with that.
Yeah, I think they absolutely do. And then once it's fully submitted in front of the 11th Circuit, I don't think they're there yet, right? Karen, I think you're
correct.
You just looked at it more recently than I did. But once it's fully briefed and argued, then it's with the Court of Appeals, and there's nothing more at that stage for the special counsel to do. And so Trump can't go and tell a court to get rid of a case. He just can't. But whatever way they rule, there could naturally be an appeal, and he will get to decide whether that gets appealed or not. And then it will go to the Supreme Court. So I do think I'd be shocked out of my gourd if they preemptively themselves dismiss that appeal or withdraw from the appeal.
So let's just go to the New York County case, right? The one that he was convicted of 34 felonies, and what's going to happen in that case? I mean, there's two things that are supposed to happen, right? There's Judge Merchan, who has to rule on the immunity decision, and then and that was supposed to happen this week, and then instead, what you had the parties basically agreeing with each other, and you together asking the court to give them another week to figure out what they're going to do, and then sentencing is supposed to be scheduled for later this month. I don't think he's going to be sentenced at all. I think that this letter basically saying we need another week to figure out what's going on really signaled to me that there are no good options, that they see no path forward. And so they're trying to figure out which bad option to do. And it's for the following reasons. Number one, no matter what Merchan rules on presidential immunity, Trump is going to appeal that right away. And so even if he I don't think he's even going to allow Merchan to rule on presidential immunity. I think he's going to try and get a stay, saying I'm a president-elect, and I'm preparing for being president, and there's even a statute in place that says, that provides for the transition and gives me office space. And, this is a role, right? This is a statutorily created role, the president-elect. And the whole purpose of it is to allow continuity of government and not to disrupt things, and peaceful transfer of power, and all the things that we want. And so because of the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution, which says federal law is supreme over state law, I don't see how a state court judge can do anything to interrupt that. And I think that he will potentially get a stay. So I don't see a path to sentencing, and I'm not even sure I see a path to getting this immunity decision decided. And so I think that the DA's office is exploring, at least, again, I'm just reading the tea leaves, exploring what are of all the bad options, what should they be? What are you guys seeing?
Time is going to tell, right, Danya? Yeah,
I have no idea. I think I have a slightly different view. I think that. Look, Alvin Bragg is also in the crosshairs in the next administration, but I don't think that's what this is at all. I don't think it's fear. I think it is genuine concern that this is completely unprecedented, and they've never seen it before, and they're not going to react. But I don't know why they wouldn't let Merchan rule, and then fine, that gets appealed, but within the state court system. And eventually, yeah, it will go to the Supreme Court and they can decide. But it's the same thing as with Jack Smith. Like, I don't know why they would preemptively on their own get rid of the case that they worked so damn hard.
I hope you're right. I hope they take that route. I just, like I said, I think that I get the impression, again, reading the tea leaves between the lines, that Trump's team is telling them, we're going to go get a stay so that that Judge Merchan can't even rule on immunity. That's what I get the impression, that there's something like that going on, because, they think that they can get that. But who knows? I hope you're right. That would be, make the courts decide, make it so, don't do it preemptively, make the courts decide, because frankly, the courts are the ones who created this mess. Yeah. So make them be the one. With that immunity decision. Well, okay. So to be determined, we'll see what happens with the New York case. But anyone who thinks that there's going to be a sentencing, I think really we need to manage expectations. There's no path to sentencing him to anything, let alone a sentencing at all. But we'll see. Hopefully he's still going to become president as the first president to be a convicted felon. 12 jurors found beyond a reasonable doubt that he's guilty of 34 counts. So he is a felon, and no one can ever take that away from the people of the state of New York. So we have reached the end of another episode of MissTrial. I love spending time with you guys every week, and there's so much to talk about. We're always in a rush because we can't make this too long. There's so many topics, and we have to figure out which one there's going to be. But you guys are amazing, and I could talk to you all day about these things. So thanks everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining us.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.